Koutou katoa, kia ora, everybody. Let's just crack in. Wayne's got a bill he seems to use judiciously, and Jerome's already stolen my chicken joke. So, what are some of the market drivers, right, for climate action for Fonterra? So let's crack into that. Here's a kind of a range of some of the metrics, right? Here's just some of the things that, as a food manufacturer, distributor, exporter, and marketer, that shape some of our operating environment that we're currently in. And look, the reality is there's probably a range of different metrics you could put up there, but this is a set of things that are kind of relevant to us, right now. Micronutrient deficiency throughout the world. 1.5 degrees, recognising Andy's discussion earlier around actually the challenge behind that. Recycling as, plastic as an industry, what are we doing there? And thinking about this in terms of the conversion of this into products and product launches, right? This is the operating environment that Fonterra finds itself in. And these then lead to the rise of what we've called the conscious consumer. I think, Matt, it was the eco-consumer. Similar language, different things. Ultimately, our consumers are responding to the world that they live in and are now starting to make active choices in terms of their purchasing habits as a result. Now, again, there's no shortage of data from consumer insights and FMCG businesses around what drives certain behaviours. I thought I'd throw this one here up because it's kind of interesting, right? I have this conversation with farmers fairly regularly in terms of consumers that are interested in sustainability. That is a first world or an Eurocentric thing, and what the reality is that we've got maybe not fantastic trade access to some of those countries. How much do we really need to think about this versus some of these more developing economies? The reality is that climate conscious or eco-conscious consumers are through the world, right? We've seen here that Indonesia has a higher percentage of interest than USA. Who would have thought that coming into this room that the Indonesian consumers would have that interest? And even when you've got a scenario whereby this is our view of our conscious consumer, there's quite a supply chain between dairy being produced in New Zealand and that conscious consumer. One of the examples that I do use is, I was talking to a customer recently, and they produce and manufacture and market a range of different portfolios and products. One of them being in the chocolate area, and they said, hey, look, the conscious consumer in the chocolate department actually at the supermarket they take 3 seconds to make the decision. Do I get that item or do I not? I think it's about 1.5 seconds for me, clearly. But in that 3 seconds, they've made a choice, right? However, I can tell you the people doing the purchasing for the retailer, the people that do the manufacturing for the people that provide the product to the retailer, these people take far longer than 3 seconds. So even where you may not have a consumer that is acted in that sort of conscious manner, there has been somebody in that supply chain that has thought, what is this product? How is it being produced? How is it getting to market? And ultimately, it results in consumers reaching for brands whose values align with their own. And I think this is important, right? The key word here is values. It's not a metric, it's not a number. It's partially qualitative, partially quantitative. It's about a value that aligns to the consumer. And that means you can't just achieve on one dimension. You have to make sure that you are considering your climate exposure. What are you doing in animal welfare? How is your water quality working out? What does your social responsibility look like? What does your governance policy look like? How about diversity? This is values-based in terms of what's driving brand preferences throughout the world. However, we think dairy has a strong role in terms of providing nutrition to the world, right? We think about this in terms of global diet, and dairy is a strong contributor in terms of providing nutrition that the world needs. However, not all dairy is created equal, right? You can end up with the same output. There's a glass of milk. However, how is that glass of milk created is fundamentally the question that we're challenging. And we're doing this in a way to think about, well, how do you valorise this? How do you actually convert the way you're making the same product as somebody else is making in a way that there is value there for our New Zealand farmers? But yeah, and it also starts with the premise that we have to be honest, we have to be upfront. All production has an impact upon the planet, right? So it's not about saying that there's not an impact here, there is an impact here, and we need to do and play our role in terms of minimising that. However, then we start to think about, well, what is it about New Zealand that is unique? What is it about our dairy and meat that is unique? And we're thinking about, how do those opportunities then play through to market? So we have 90% above grass-fed in terms of our dairy. Over 350 days outdoors. Most farmers 365. And we have healthy and cared for cows in our production systems. So there are some inherent benefits here in terms of how we farm relative to some of our peers. And it means that we do have one of the lowest carbon footprints in the world. I do apologise, the cloud seems to be... Anyway, we'll carry on. Now, some of these are, why are we so efficient? And these won't be a surprise to you, the pasture-based farming, the sunshine, the grass and soil, our animal health and welfare and rainfall and high amount of renewable electricity that's in our system, alongside very efficient farmers. So in some respects, we've ended up in this position of being amongst the lowest in the globe through some of these biophysical benefits. However, when we look forward, can we simply rely upon these measures, these factors here, to retain that position of efficiency? So yes, we are one of the most carbon efficient producers of dairy in the world, but we can do more, and we need to do so. We're committed to producing dairy in a way that cares for environment, animals, and planet. Thinking about some of these macro factors in terms of markets, customers, consumers, and at the same time, I don't think it's a controversial statement whatsoever anymore to say that the New Zealand milk pool is in a flat to declining mode. Thinking about these things, Fonterra developed and released a new set of strategies late 2021. And those strategies, there are three key themes or three key pillars. Focus on New Zealand milk, be a leader in sustainability, and be a leader in dairy innovation and science. I typically like to think about them in terms of a Venn diagram as opposed to those three elements by itself, because in some respects to actually articulate or achieve upon your strategy means you actually need to achieve across all three. Ultimately, these strategic goals that or postures that we've set are all around sort of shifting to a higher value. When you sort of take us back to that sort of context that I touched on before around milk in New Zealand being flat or declining, it does mean that we need to really start thinking about, well, what actually adds growth, what actually adds value to the product we're producing, and how do we make sure that we're taking care of that scarce resource that our farmers are providing us. So focus on New Zealand milk. Fundamentally of that scarce resource, how do we convert it into value? And we've seen Fonterra start to manage some of its divestment in some of its milk pools overseas. Be a leader in dairy innovation and science. This is when we're starting to look at, well, what is the ways that we can change our form and functionality of some of our dairy nutrition so that it accesses more higher quality markets for higher quality customers. And be a leader in sustainability. Now, I don't think it's, again, controversial to say that there is no way, shape or form that you can have a strategic posture of being a leader in sustainability without having a world-leading climate approach. We're having this conversation with our farmers right now. As Minister Shaw noted, we are going through the setting of a Scope 3 emissions reduction target for our farmers. Now, this is it's a great conversation that we're having. And this is a conversation that we're having that is aligned to making sure that we're producing milk for the customers and consumers that they want, and will extract the most value out of that precious resource that we provide, that they provide us. There will always likely be a market out there for New Zealand produced dairy. I'm just not sure that the market that supports a strong return at the farm gate, whether it be through milk price or margin, comes from servicing North Africa via whole milk powder. It's largely how we convert this into the higher value parts of the market that actually matters. How do you do that? There's largely sort of three sort of key sort of aspects in terms of how you convert this into a competitive advantage. First of all, it's about having deep collaboration on sustainability challenges, and that collaboration is across the dairy value chain, right? That's how the cooperative works alongside its farmers. It's how the cooperative works alongside its customers, like Jerome earlier. It's also how the cooperative works alongside a number of you people in the room in terms of how we advance, whether it be R&D, innovation or mitigation opportunities for our farmers. It's how we work alongside the Crown in terms of an aligned view around on farm support. And then it's about how do we embold that bold sustainability market telling story into our brands. So great that we're doing the right things at home, but if we are unable to articulate that in a way that resonates with our customers and consumers, you would sort of say you haven't unlocked that value piece. And also a winning go-to-market approach for sustainability. And that's sustainability, not just climate, right? Because different markets resonate to different things, of which climate is a significant pillar, but we have to be very clear in terms of what a winning strategy looks like. I'm not concerned. I'm excited by this challenge that the cooperative is going through. The cooperative, Fonterra has a long history in terms of taking on sustainability challenges, whether it be through early clean streams of corridor, stock exclusion from waterways, moving into farm environment plans, moving into emissions reporting. We have a long history of being able to utilise the strength and size and the collective nature of the cooperative to support our farmers. And look, final slide, and I won't read it verbatim, but fundamentally, this is a global challenge. We have a role to play in terms of supporting our farmers, but part of our role to play is in how do we make ourselves available to partner and support our farmers, and ultimately be able to sheet home the value that the dairy production that they provide us back to them. Kia ora.
Thanks very much, Andrew. So dairy provides the nutrition the world needs. I like that bit, and also that New Zealand is and can be a leader in sustainability in dairy. So still quite a lot of challenge in there, as we heard earlier from Nestle and also from Andrew.